Of all the artifacts that were aboard the good ship Mayflower, not a single gun is known to have survived. But historians believe they were probably there, accompanying the Pilgrims to Plymouth Rock. Guns are so woven into the fabric of our founding that on the 4th floor of the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, they have their very own vault. I'm sure there's people that would give anything to come in here and see these things, right?
Yeah, I get lots of visitors who are just astounded and don't want to leave.
David Miller is the curator here. He's got guns of all shapes and sizes and calibers.
George Kennan. Ooh, that one is probably from Russia.
And every one has a historic reason for being here.
This is the type of weapon that would have been used at Lexington or Concord.
It's not the gun that kicked off the revolution with that shot heard round the world, but it's similar. The musket is now in every history book. It's come to symbolize freedom and independence, even celebrated on Broadway in the smash hit Hamilton. Shot, I am not going away, my shot. Guns are just part of our everyday language, going off half-cocked, flash in the pan, bite the bullet. They're all rooted in firearms lore. But were we really born a gun culture? Historian Pamela Haig says, not necessarily.
Listen to how many sentences begin with something like, Americans have always, they have always loved guns, they have always had guns. These things are much more complicated than that. The meanings of guns have changed.
In her soon-to-be-released book, The Gunning of America, Haig says most settlers viewed the gun as a tool, as necessary and yet as ordinary as a plow or an axe.
We think we have a gun culture because of this special, exceptional status with guns, but really, commercially, the gun was extremely unexceptional. It was very much treated like any other commodity.
At the start of the Revolutionary War, we didn't even have enough arms to outfit the Continental Army. Today, however, it's estimated we have more guns than people. So how did we get from there to here and here?
The gun industry is not the only reason that we got here. However, it is the reason that never gets talked about.
It's not just a matter of salesmanship, but gun industrialists like Oliver Winchester and Samuel Colt did their level best to create a market for their wares. Out of their factories in Connecticut, what came to be known as Gun Valley, they would soon produce firearms with the same speed and efficiency as Henry Ford would later do with the automobile. Best known, the Winchester 73 and the Colt single-action Army revolver, two of the guns that won the West. But as the frontier disappeared, so did the desire of many Americans to own a gun.
These guns were not just selling themselves, they weren't just flying off the shelf.
So by the 20th century, gun makers started to market their guns not just as a tool, but a feeling.
What was once needed now had to be loved.
There was a strong appeal to the young, too, and the notion of the gun as a rite of passage.
One of the more interesting ads said, "You know your boy wants a gun. You just don't know how much. He can't tell you. It's beyond words."
For parents worried about real guns, there were catalogs full of toy ones, a must-have.
Ah, there it is.
Immortalized in what is now a Christmas classic.
The Red Ryder 200-shot range model air rifle.
It resembled the iconic rifles of the Wild West. And nothing romanticized the gun better than the cowboy. From real-life legends like Wild Bill Hickok, Wyatt Earp, and Annie Oakley, to Hollywood immortals like John Wayne and Jimmy Stewart. The gun came to represent the rugged individualism of the untamed West. As the good guys and bad guys changed, so did the guns.
Say hello to my little friend!
Some became as famous as the stars who fired them.
Go ahead. Make my day.
If the guns look especially authentic, well, that's because they are. Hollywood gunsmiths take real working firearms and modify them to shoot blanks.
Okay, weapons hot.
Like this submachine gun I was handed.
Now just hold the trigger down.
Pretty convincing, right? Well, they have to be, says Larry Zanoff, an armorer at Independent Studio Services, one of the largest prop houses in Hollywood.
The education level of the public is much greater than it was. So yeah, we have to be that accurate down to the nth degree.
We do take our guns seriously, owning them as a constitutional right. But we've also tried to legislate how to control them.
Americans have always had mixed feelings about guns. So for as much as the gunslingers are part of our heritage, so too is disquiet and discomfort with guns.
Even in the supposed Wild West, towns like Tombstone and Dodge City prohibited people from carrying guns in public. FDR signed the first federal gun control legislation in 1934, hoping to reduce the number of bootlegging gangsters armed with Tommy guns and the like. Then, fast forward 3 decades.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
John F. Kennedy's assassination, along with Robert Kennedy and the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., led President Lyndon Johnson to push through the Gun Control Act of 1968.
We have been through a great deal of anguish these last few months and these last few years. Too much anguish to forget.
Too much anguish back then, but what about now? Today there seems to be an alarming sameness to our gun violence, from Columbine High School to a Tucson parking lot, to a movie theater in Aurora, and a grade school in Newtown. These incidents don't decrease gun sales. Instead, gun sales tend to go up. In fact, U.S. gun makers produced nearly 11 million firearms in the year after Sandy Hook. Not far from there, in Hartford, Connecticut, sits a church built by Samuel Colt's widow. It stands as a unique symbol of just where guns sit in our culture today. Because mixed in with the cherubs and the saints, you'll find her husband's firearms as art on the walls mingling with the ivy, hidden at the top of the church's columns. And maybe that's the place guns will always occupy, worshipped by many, their presence carved in stone.